Hi everyone, my target is a one take video. So this is about the book that I'm reading. It's Mirrored Nudge. It is about behavioral science, and this video is to polish my communication skills, how I deliver things. I will be visiting it time to time and seeing what happens to how I'm communicating. It's about the summary of the things that I've just read. I've read about like 20% of the book, and it is about choice architecture. So what is choice architecture? It means that whenever we are designing something or whenever you are creating something, you place things in a certain order, and that order affects how people perceive that thing. A very good example here is when a school educator is designing a menu for a cafeteria. So if she places desserts at eye level, it is most likely that people or the kids will choose that dessert. But if they put salads there, they are more likely to choose salad. So now it gives the power to the menu creator that what things you put there, so they can drive better things in the life. So they can choose to maximize their profit, or they can choose to make kids' life better by offering healthy things. This is one example, and now different things appear about how choices of a human beings matters, or sorry, how the choices of human beings are formed. So they have divided people into two types, that is econs and human beings. Econs are economic beings, which is the ideal case scenario, and that is not how human beings make choices. So it is an ideal human being, but we don't think like that, we don't make choices like that. I will just refer to the headings. So first part one is humans and econs. Econs are economic beings. So it is said that there are different type of beliefs that we have while making the choices. First one are few of them. Oh God. Okay. I will just skim through different things. So first, some of them are optimism and overconfidence. So we do have this thing in ourselves where we are over optimistic and unrealistic about deadlines, about things that we can complete and stuff, and it happens to mostly all of us. Then interesting one, gains and losses. So if I tell you that you can have, if you don't do this, you will gain X amount, but if I say if you do this, you will lose X amount. So making it more easy to understand, if you eat a toffee, you will have to pay $5. If you don't eat a toffee, I will give you $5. So there's an inclination more towards loss aversion. So I wouldn't do a task if something is getting off me, if something is being taken away from me. Even if we compare it to a situation, if I say I will get the same amount of profit if I am doing that task. So it says, it takes the example of plastic bags, in which malls say that you have to pay an X amount if you are taking plastic bags from us, and the other one is if you bring your own bags, we will give you an X amount of discount. The first one works better because we are very much attached to letting go of things. Then next one, framing. Wonderful thing. So if a doctor says you can go for this surgery, stats are that out of 100 surgeries, 90 people survived. Next option of framing this thing is you can go for the surgery, out of 100 only 10 people died. Both of the things mean the same thing, but how we frame them, it changes something in our brain on how we make that choices. So framing things, you can use this tool to get things your way, to make data presentable in a more way that supports your statements. Next is how we think. There are two systems in us, which is a reference to Daniel Kahneman's animal brain and rational brain. So we have a planner in us and we have a doer in us, in which both of them are in conflict. Planner uses the rational brain, long-term brain, which is far ahead of us, of the doer brain, which is very compulsive. It falls prey to the temptations and stuff. what we usually do is we underestimate what value, what power those temptations have. Next chapter is, it is titled Resisting Temptations. So they say sometimes, what is temptation? Temptation is something that you will choose when you're in a hot state of mind. So we have two states, hot state and cold state, which can be both beneficial to us and also, as we know, harmful to us. Beneficial example would be like that if you are doing something that you're very scared of, like cliff jumping, so you need to be in hot state of mind to take that risk. On the other hand, like you are in a junk food space area, you are following your diet throughout the month, but in that instinctively in that second you just fall prey to it. We have self-control strategies, in which again now correlation is taken to how we are lost efforts, how we are very much like we are okay with not getting the profit, but we are not okay with giving away our money or bearing the loss. So in that example of self-control strategies, the author gives an example of in which both of the people are following a diet plan or something like that, a fitness freak thing, and one of them can call any time of the day, any time of the week to weigh in. So next day to that day they have to weigh in, and if anyone is slightly higher than the other, they have to pay a certain amount of money. So what it does is that it pushes both of them to be consistent, to follow the diet, to be healthy. These are some of the self-control strategies that we employ. Next is mental accounting. Here we take the example of money being fungible. Fungible is, so if money, I have allocated my money 20 bucks for, I'm just taking an example, 20 bucks for rent, and then I have a mental accounting of education money. Similarly, 20 bucks there. The amount in my mental accounting for 20 bucks for renting is same for education. That 20 bucks will perform in the same way as it will do in education. But to cut down our costs, what we actually do is, what it happens in almost all household, we have a bars made to it, we have separated. This money is for expenditure, this is for saving, and we don't transfer it. We don't use our savings money to do some expenditure. We would rather take it from someone else, do our expenditure, but not take it from a savings account. This is some sort of mental accounting that is done. Next chapter is following the herd. It is an interesting one. So it says, when we do subconsciously follow the herd, if something is said out loud in a group, then people are more likely to say the same answer. And if that same question is repeatedly asked individually to them, without them listening to the group answer, they all have very varied answers. So we do get influenced by people, and this is how choice architects do. This is what companies do. They nudge in the things. They nudge in a different set of emotions, behavior and choices which subconsciously affect us. When I say the word nudge, this is the title of the book, right? I will also explain this thing, and it is a very beautiful concept. So there are two types of things in which happens. One is you are completely restricting someone. That is a ban. Nudge is literally how, see the book cover design. You see, U is just nudged a bit above the baseline of the letters. So nudge is just a little push, but it does not mean any real loss. It does not mean any real change in the money, in the change in the results a person will face. So when options are given to a lot of options are given to us, a nudge is something that would make a person to choose one thing over other, more incentivized, but it won't push it, and that is nudge. Then one is liberal paternalism, something that is similar to nudge. We give them free choice. I think that's it. I feel it will get better with time, but I think it's a good book. It should be read by everyone, because whatever role we are playing, we are being choice architects, especially designers. Like, I can't emphasize enough for designers how important this is. So if I'm doing a graphic design thing, I dictate how will viewer view the things, what will be the hierarchy for the importance, how they will perceive things. So this is a good insight on how humans perceive things. That's it. Thank you. Bye.